Alright guys, today's video, we're going to have 10 things you need to be saving in Cycle Frontier for preseason, or you're gonna regret it. Alright guys, one of the first things you're going to want to be saving no matter what is hydraulic pistons. Anytime you run across them, anytime you can pick them up, you should be picking them up. They're used in a lot of different things. One of the main things you're going to be using them in later in the game is oil pumps. So you're going to want to have a good little stockpile of them. The other thing they're used for is silencers. I craft myself a lot of silencers. I play a lot of solo. And you can make auto loaders with them also. So make sure you're saving all the hydraulic pistons you can. Never sell them. All right, one of the next things you're going to want to save anytime you see is smart mesh. Smart mesh is so useful. It's pretty much used in like a numerous different things. The main thing I used a lot of smart mesh in is the armor here. The purple armor you can craft with smart mesh. I believe there's also some stuff you can craft. You can craft print resin. There's a bunch of different things smart mesh is used for. It's also used for the laser drill, which is an end game item. And I think it's for something else. So moral of the story, save all the smart mesh you can get. Anytime you see smart mesh, you should be picking it up. And if you can't pick it up, make room in your inventory. So what's the next thing you need to save? Electronic cables. And why do you need to save electronic cables? Well, electronic cables are mainly used for the player quarters, but the other thing they are used for, like the other stuff that I've mentioned, end game items. So you're going to want to have a good little stockpile of electronic cables because you need 18 electronic cables for the laser drill. So you're going to want to have a good supply of them. It's going to be pain trying to pick them all up later. I think you can fit like stacks of 100 with them. So yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't pick them up. And as I said, there's some player quarter stuff for them. So make sure you're saving a lot of electronic cables. You can make derelict explosives with them. So anytime you see electronic cables and you can pick them up, you pick them up. Alright, the next thing I'm going to mention isn't as important to save, but it kind of is if you plan to craft some later weapons and stuff, because it's a little bit harder to get all the stuff you need. But to mention, you can craft this item. So derelict explosives are very important to save also, because if you want to craft some of these weapons, I think it's the comrade, you're going to need a lot of explosives. And the other thing they're used for is a few different jobs and quests. So you're going to need a little bit of those. But it's not as important to save them because you can now craft them under the materials tab. You can craft the explosives. It's 4 electronic cables, meteor frag, and some radio equipment. So it's not as important, but it is if you're going to want to craft the weapon later, because it's kind of, you need a lot of them. You need 40. So save them if you want to craft the weapon. If you don't really care about getting the weapon, it's not as much of a big deal. All right, the next item you're going to want to be saving is mainly used for quests. So that's pretty much the only reason you're going to be saving it for. There's not too many things you craft with it. And it's the shard slicer. It looks like this. And later in the quest chain, you need a bunch of them. I think it's like 12 or 13 total between a couple different quests. So it's a pain later. If you try to gather them all later, you'll be stuck on that one quest for quite a while. So I would go ahead and save these if you do plan to do the quest chain. If you only strictly PvP and don't do the quests at all, it won't really matter much for you. Then you can just go ahead and sell them. So sample containers are the 6th thing you should be saving, and one of the reasons you should be saving them is because it's mainly used for player quarters and a couple different quests. And if you try to get them all later, you're going to be stuck on that quest forever, and it's going to take you a long time, because what'll happen is everybody will be doing that at that same time, and you'll never find them. And they look like this, and they look literally like a little container. So if you're running around and you see a sample container on the ground, pick it up. It'll help you save some time later down the line. All right, the 7th thing is radio equipment. Now, radio equipment's used in like almost everything. It's really good. I use it a lot for my Epic helmets because the Epic helmet is 5 radio equipment and 1 hardened bone plate. So it's really cheap to make Epic helmets. The other thing you're going to use a lot of radio equipment for is in your quarter upgrades, and you will have a lot of quests that are requiring radio equipment. So I would go ahead and get yourself a little stockpile of radio equipment. Start crafting yourself some Epic helmets because, as it says, it's just 5 radio equipment and 1 hardened bone plate. So it's really, really cheap to make. And you can see it's right here, the helmets, Epic helmets. Yeah, I don't think you can see it. I think my camera's in it, but yeah, it's 5 radio equipment, 1 hardened bone plate. Print resin. That's the next thing you want to be saving. You know, at first I didn't really think I was gonna need to be saving it because I had like a bunch of it, and then I realized, holy cow, like everything uses print resin. So make sure you're saving all your print resin. You'll save yourself some hassle. You can now craft print resin, which makes it a little bit easier. It's kind of costly to craft though. It's 1 smart mesh, so do keep that in mind. I would definitely be picking up any print resin that you can get because you need it for the higher tier armor. And I usually roll around in exotic armor, you know, so I try to pick up any print resin I can see. That's one thing I always pick up when I run across it. Now, the next one is not too important, but you're definitely going to want to save a few of them. It's mainly used for quests, and that's the biological sampler. You don't run across those as much, and like the only thing I really ever used them for was a couple different quests. And it's just a pain to try to grab them when you're on that quest, and then you got to go stash it. So it's kind of a pain. So if you know, I would definitely get a few of these saved, so when you get to the quest, you can just turn it in and be done. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for it. And if you already got past that point, you probably don't need to keep these for anything because they're not really that useful at the moment. Once I get past it, I just sell it. The last thing you want to be saving for sure, and it's used pretty much like for everything, is aluminum scrap. Use aluminum scrap in your quests. Use aluminum scrap for your player quarters. Use aluminum scrap for crafting. You can never have enough aluminum scrap. So I would say anytime you see it on the ground, make sure you're picking it up. A lot of good player quarters you need that for. And I know for the higher tier quest items, right here, the oil pump beacon, you need aluminum scrap. You need 12 aluminum scrap. And then there's quite a few different attachments that require it. Suppressors. So I would always pick up aluminum scrap and never, ever sell your aluminum scrap. So if you hung around this long, I got 2 bonus items for you to save, and you should be saving. One of them is the Zero System CPU. Now that is not as important to save. I usually ran across those quite a bit, but the nice thing with the Zero System CPU is you can craft your armor with them, the blue armor, and they're not too expensive to craft. So I would, you know, if you need some money, you could sell them. If you don't, I would save those because they're fairly decent. And then the last thing I would tell you to save, because you're going to need later, is the mini reactors. And now the only reason you're going to need mini reactors mainly for is your quarter upgrades later. So that's not too big of a deal, but if you start saving them later, you'll save yourself some time in the long run. That is it, guys. I appreciate it. And as always, please throw me a follow, a like, and yeah, subscribe. You know what I'm saying. You know, follow. You don't. Yeah, what? You get the picture. Yeah, throw me a sub, and I'd appreciate it, guys. Have a good day. I'll see you all later. Until next time.